As always, Bimal, your wishes are my command. And, but it's first I would like to thank Uday for his very kind remarks. I want to also thank the Forum, Habitat Center Raj, and Society of Policy Studies, Subbu, for organizing this evening and for inviting me here. It's a great pleasure. I would also like to pay respects to Mr. Subramanian for taking the trouble to be here. I really appreciate that. Never had the real opportunity to meet before, but better late than never. You know, I think I made an enormous mistake in choosing this topic because basically it's just too vague. You know, I mean, current economic prospects and what am I going to talk about? Am I going to talk about poverty, unemployment, growth, foreign trade? You know, it's just it's a huge topic. So let me say what I mean. Since I have to cut the cake somehow, I thought I would use an approach which is perhaps normally less, how should I say, stuff of daily reading for non-economists. Although I appreciate there are some economists in this audience perhaps. But my guess is the majority are not. So I try and do something which is perhaps a little more challenging from my point of view, which is to get across the importance of more what we economist brethren call the macroeconomy. In a sense, that's a little abstract, and that's why it's a challenge to get the points across to non-economists. And if at the end of the half hour, 35 minutes that I have to speak, I have failed, I'm sure my failure will be converted in, well, the gaps will be filled by Dr. Ran, who not only was my first boss in government, but is a good friend and someone who I learned a great deal about how to work in government and yet, against the odds, sometimes be productive. So, and so really it was a great privilege to work with him for about 4 years, and I wish that engagement had continued, but then he went on to much bigger and higher things and left me in the coils of the finance ministry. Right, without further ado, and I've sort of alerted you that I'm not going to try and answer everything on everything, but just pick a selection on macroeconomic issues. If I get this right. Everybody's always talking about growth. Now here I just want you to get a picture of our last 20 years of the growth of the economy of India. And you know, I think one thing that comes across if you put up a bar chart like that, at least to me, is that it's not been a steady kind of progress at all. In particular, I think very quickly you can see that it starts with the crisis year of 91 when we had hardly any growth, about 1.5% in that year. And then we had a very good recovery, you know, all of that Manmohan economics, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao's crucial support for the policies that were undertaken at that time, etc., which did lead to in the context of a favorable international environment, which lead to quite a strong recovery of, as you can see from the bar charts, how they steadily climb for about 5 years, and you get a good sort of nice 6.5% to 7% average growth rate for those 5 years. Then you get another 6 years following, where it sort of bounces around but at a lower level. It happens to coincide with the period when the NDA were in power. Well, not just NDA, it was also the period where the initial 2 years were coalition government of various kinds, United Front, and then the NDA for the next, I guess, 4, 5, and then that period essentially may look a bit bad, and it does, I suppose, on average, but a lot of creative reforms got done then, which yielded fruit later, is what I would argue. And that fruit, when it did come, as you can see, along again with a very hypercharged world economy, led to a period of 5 years of extraordinary growth for India. You know, all these 8%, 9% numbers belong to that period between 2003 and 2008, and we averaged during those 5 years 29% growth. Then we had the global crisis, which brought it down, but we recovered quite swiftly. But in the last 2 years, it all seems to have collapsed in some sense. We are back to 5% growth.